Welcome, everybody. This is Jon Tota. I just want to do a quick check. I see we've got our panelists on the line here. I just want to make sure that everybody's got good audio control. So, John Hall, just do a quick sound check that you're able to speak.
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me fine?
Yep, I can hear you fine. Thank you, John. Andrew, are you online?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Perfect. Well, listen, everybody, I want to thank you for joining us today for this quick webinar. We're going to spend just about a half hour together. We want to thank everyone for taking time in the middle of your day to listen to this special webinar. This is our first webinar in a thought leadership series that we'll be conducting over the next several months. And today we're lucky enough to have two real experts in this field, both John Hall and Andrew Fayad, who really bring a certain amount of expertise above and beyond what we have here internally, and we're excited to have their perspective on this. My name is Jon Tota. I'm the co-founder and president of Edulence, and I'll be the host for today's session. The session titled for today is Thought Leadership versus Knowledge Expertise. And a couple of the objectives, as you'll see on the screen in a moment here, that we want to accomplish today is really diving into what is thought leadership. Is it different than knowledge expertise, and where is the differentiation? And how can you implement an effective strategy for both? So as I said before, my name is Jon Tota, and I will be hosting and narrating the session today. And I am the co-founder and president of Edulence, and we work with a lot of thought leaders and knowledge experts on converting their content to digital media and putting it up online to build online courses and be able to build a business around that. And as you heard John Hall, who's with us, John is the co-founder and CEO of Edulence & Co. And he's a real pioneer in the content marketing space, so he's a great panelist to have with us today. John works with companies of all sizes who really want to expand their influence and leverage their thought leadership to create engaging content that's not just going to capture eyeballs but also drive traffic. And John offers an expert perspective on the real power of content marketing and the role of a thought leader. And Andrew Fayad is really to eLearning what John is to content marketing. He's the co-founder and CEO of eLearning Mind. And it's a firm known for helping major brands develop really beautiful e-learning modules that, while they're expertly designed, they're also designed to be effectively transferring knowledge and getting results with end users and trainees. Andrew's going to share his thoughts on how a knowledge expert can really leverage what their intellectual property is and everything that's in their head to develop truly effective knowledge expertise that you can use to build a business around. What's really interesting about both John and Andrew as well is that while they both have a certain expertise in their respective fields, they're equally accomplished as really established thought leaders in their own right. They do quite a bit of content marketing on their own, and they've got a real interesting perspective on how that can be used to develop your own brand. So to kick us off here, the first topic is really what is a thought leader, and really defining if you are a thought leader. And what's up on the screen right now is a generic description, and you could find this anywhere on the internet, that a thought leader is really an informed opinion leader, the go-to person in their specific field of expertise, and considered a trusted source. But this is just a generic definition, and so for the first topic here, what I want to do is turn it over first to John and then to Andrew, and really look at this from more of a practical application for the next couple minutes and say, you know, beyond just the generic description of a thought leader, practically, how is that really implemented in the real world, and what are the different types of thought leaders out there? And I think one of the interesting topics on this is that, you know, the internet's made it very easy for virtually anyone to start marketing their content, distributing it all across the web, and kind of self-declaring themselves as a thought leader. And that's very different from actually really implementing an effective strategy and establishing yourself as that opinion leader in your field of expertise. So I'll first turn it over to John to talk a little bit more, because this is really Edulence & Co.'s core competency. So John, can you fill in a little bit more about the practical application of a thought leader and what it really means to be one?
Sure, absolutely. Can you hear me fine?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Yeah, and you kind of touched on a big part of it is that it's the perception against are you actually a thought leader. A lot of times people are self-declaring themselves thought leaders just because they published a book or they are a columnist somewhere. Ultimately, I mean, if you're self-declaring yourself a thought leader, that's a lot of times a big key that you're not. A lot of the people who actually do have influence and do well at thought leadership are the ones that don't have to go around self-declaring themselves. Because ultimately, what thought leadership is about is, I think in this definition, there's a key part in here that says trusted source. It's about making yourself a trusted source for information and helping others and educating others around you, so that ultimately you gain their trust and can influence them. Now, there's a lot of uses of that, like for a company like a MasterCard, GE, AIG, the large companies out there. They want to gain trust to influence large, areas of people to get them to trust the brand and to increase brand awareness. For people that are small businesses or smaller companies, they might say, hey, we want to generate really high quality leads to us, so we have to gain trust because ultimately we're making money off, other people thinking we're the best. So it's important that we're actually getting them good information, educating them, helping them become better in the area that they're coming to us for, so that ultimately we become the trusted resource in the area and ultimately can influence them to do what we would like them to do, which ultimately is a great way to market yourself.
Great. Thank you, John. And Andrew, from your perspective, not just in the work you do with your clients, but also your experiences kind of establishing yourselves, eLearning Mind, as thought leaders in your space, what's your practical experience in this area?
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And am I coming through loud and clear here, John?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, so as John was saying from Influence & Co., it's about gaining trust, and real thought leaders don't really need to acknowledge or say to the world that, hey, we're thought leaders. And I think what you really start to see is a thought leader develops a following online, and it's a very natural way of establishing that credibility. Here at eLearning Mind, we have a unique perspective because we're working with all sorts of knowledge experts, but we're also on a marketing side of things, and a shout out to our marketing department has done a really good job of developing our thought leadership, and that's through transparency and authenticity, and developing a purpose behind our thought leadership and honing into, hey, what develops really great learning experiences? How can you do this through your knowledge expertise?
Excellent. Thank you guys for both of your feedback on that. And moving on, one of the big things for us is, looking at how effective both, all the concepts on content. It's really a content marketing strategy, thought leadership marketing. And one of the big questions, and we want to do some research and share some statistics here, is does it really work? Does the whole concept of establishing yourself as a thought leader in your particular space, and then developing a real content marketing strategy around that, does it make a difference? And I think overwhelmingly the stats are pretty much in your favor. You can see 60% of consumers will enjoy reading the relevant content from their brands. 82% feel more positive about the company based on that custom content, and 70% of the consumers feel closer to a company as a result of it. And while that's all well and good, when we look at that, that's all just the emotional feeling that you're creating with the content marketing and establishing yourself as a thought leader. But then what becomes a real interesting question is, but does it really work? Does it actually generate leads? Does it you really get people more interested in purchasing what you might be selling? And that's where we really look at it and say, okay, well, thought leadership is one piece of the puzzle, and the other piece is really establishing your knowledge expertise, and is what you're doing in the thought leadership and content marketing really getting people to not just feel good about the content and read the content, but actually make a difference. And that's where these statistics are really interesting. Obviously, it's a very cost-effective way. It's 62% less costly than traditional marketing. 60% of the people are polled are inspired to seek out a product after reading more content about it. And most importantly, on every dollar spent, content marketing generates approximately 3 times as many leads as traditional marketing. So it really works on both sides. One from the conceptual aspect of, creating that brand awareness, creating the trust with your particular audience. But then on the other end, does it really ultimately convert to a more pre-qualified lead that's more interested in what you're offering on the other end? So that said, again, I want to turn it over to Jon and then Andrew to talk a little bit about this from the effectiveness of content marketing and your experience both in working with clients and doing it yourselves, not just creating the brand awareness and the trust, but how do you see it working as far as converting to actually driving traffic and getting real results? So, Jon, what's your perspective on that first?
Sure, and something that I will say that a lot of times people who are obviously on the kind of thought leadership inbound marketing train, they don't say enough is that it's almost looked at what content marketing and thought leadership is a replacement to traditional marketing, when in reality it's not. Just to be very transparent, is that even some of the leaders like a HubSpot, who is one of the best inbound marketers out there, they use traditional marketing in a way. So it's not like we're talking about a complete replacement here. What in our content marketing thought leadership can do is it can do a really great job of being a catalyst to a variety of different marketing vehicles. For example, like when I was speaking at different conferences that we were at, and we had business development people at these conferences, these business development people are going around meeting new people, having different touch points. I went up there and spoke, and before we really had a great, I guess, thought leadership content plan in place where we were generating very high quality content and capturing a lot of those people, we would lose a lot of that value because somebody might meet one of our business development people and say, hey, I'm not ready to buy, and then you kind of lose that lead. It kind of trails off. Or somebody might just initially see you or something with your brand, and they're not ready for that buying stage. But what thought leadership and content marketing can do is that, now that we have a very consistent kind of flow of high quality content, when we're out there in different ways, people start being captured in this net. They check out our company. They might read a blog post. They might read a white paper. They might read my Forbes column, an Inc. column, our Entrepreneur column. And they might look and say, wow, like this is something where I need to pay attention to. And also it starts creating brand advocates where they might share your content to someone internally on their team and create brand advocates within the company. So I'll give you examples. Like we've dealt with some like our large brands as big as an AIG or a Dell, and some brands as kind of fast growing, like even Shark Tank companies. All of them at some point interact with our content. And even at the beginning, for example, when we initially got in touch with AIG, they started reading our content and learning different things throughout the, as they were talking with us in the kind of sales cycle. And there was a lot of trust created there because we were educating them. We wanted to help them out and give them the right information so that we could lead them down the path so that when they did become a client, they were educated, they were ready, they were a quality client, they were prepared. And that's something a lot of times people just don't think about. They say, okay, well, we want to lead because we did a pay-per-click campaign and got them to click on thought leadership. So they signed on to Influence & Co. Well, there's a good chance that might be a really shitty client, to be honest with you, because of the fact that there was really no education there. We didn't prepare them at all. We didn't drink our own Kool-Aid at all in that case to nurture them. And what thought leadership and what content marketing can do is it really does get you a very high quality stream of potential clients. So a lot of times you're not going to have mass traffic like in other marketing vehicles, but you're going to get quality, they're going to be educated, and you can have a lot of different benefits like creating brand awareness and advocacy. So for me, This slide kind of says it all, but I would say for people not to forget that it is a catalyst to pretty much every other marketing sales approach out there, because it does help educate potential clients, current clients, and partners, and even your staff, so that ultimately everybody knows more about you and feels closer to your brand.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. And, as everybody knows, when you're dealing with sales and marketing, pre-qualification is probably one of the most costly aspects of sales, because if you can't really pre-qualify the right prospects, and half the time you're selling to the wrong people, and they're not happy, you're not happy. And so I think John's perspective on that is, looking at content marketing even beyond just lead generation, and thinking that it's about pre-qualifying and making sure you're talking to the right people and they know what your value proposition really is. So I think that's a great point. Andrew, on your end, how do you see this in a practical scenario? What else would you add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll provide some context relating to what you and John were saying, and then also provide an example. But basically, these are all high-value touch points, and that's what you're looking to create across the organization in business development, traditional marketing, in sales, in content marketing, and all these efforts go hand in hand. I was actually just reading this morning about the role of the marketing department, leadership in marketing, and what you see and what you really want in your marketing organization is someone who can really become a friend of everyone else in the organization, to understand what they're working on in product and sales, whatever it is, and really help each of the different departments with valuable touch points through content marketing, through more traditional marketing channels. Because at the end of the day, when you look at what people are doing, what prospects are looking for, they're looking for content, useful content, to do research, to make decisions, and that content enables them and equips them to develop their knowledge and do their job better. So a particular example of a company we started working with, Boston Consulting Group, they were searching on the web, and they were able to come across us through our content to help them develop knowledge, expertise, and digital learning experiences for their clients and their customers.
That's great, and then it's a good segue too, because it's at this point we're really talking about the difference between thought leadership and the content marketing strategies around that, and what Andrew just brought up about knowledge, expertise, and in how it all fits together and what the difference is. So a couple points here. One of the big things is what makes someone an effective thought leader, and I think both John and Andrew have shared a lot of information on that. And I think the big points in some of the information that we've already shared is, it's really got to be done from a position of adding value to the audience, whoever the end user might be, creating trust, really adding valuable content that can be repurposed and used, as Andrew mentioned, for doing their own research and answering their own questions internally. If they start to see you as that trusted source that can provide that research, can provide the real value add, then you can become an effective thought leader. And then, just quickly, John, what's the differentiation between, as nowadays anybody can be a thought leader, if you were to kind of summarize it in a couple sentences, what would make someone a really effective thought leader versus someone who's just putting a lot of noise out there? Because obviously there's a lot of that as well nowadays.
Yeah. I mean, I think that consistency is key. Like, I know that, there are people that do content consistently that is noise. However, that is a very, very key part of it, just because you want to consistently remind people you exist. And so if you're not doing that, you're one, hurting your current network, and then you're not reaching people consistently enough to remind them that you're there and that they should keep you top of mind. But then the next, equal to importance is the authenticity of it. I know you guys touched on that before, but being authentic and actually providing value, not bullshitting. There's enough content out there that you have to differentiate yourself in a way that people kind of they feel like it's different than what other people are offering. If you're just offering the same exact bullshit that is out there that you can see everywhere, then it's basically going to it's not going to get you it's not going to get you very far, at least in a long-term strategy. And something I did want to also point out is the example that he just gave about his client. Actually, I have a question. So once the client saw your content, did they immediately go back to the site and did they sign on, or did they keep interacting with you? What typically happens in that situation? Like, I'm kind of curious on what do you typically see clients interacting with your content? Is it just reading it, going to the site, or are they continuously reading it and staying a part of the community?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's where analytics definitely come into play. As a young organization and as a startup, it's important to really understand how people are coming to you, coming back to you, and learning from your thought leadership. In most cases, we're finding folks are searching, keywords on Google, coming across us. Sometimes they have a pressing need and they're looking for an answer, so they fill out a lead form. In other cases, they're just looking to gather research so that pressing, proactively, so if that pressing need comes along at some point where they need to build learning for their organization, they have options. So in a lot of cases, I think just with our industry and how things work, it can be a quick, turnaround of someone finding us, discovering us, reading an article or two, and then, reaching out once we've developed that credibility on our website.
Right, and I think that's just that real example is a key thing that everybody can learn from, is that for us, like, we look at all marketing is some type of a funnel. You're trying to naturally draw people to you to get them to do something, right? And so that top kind of touch points that has been referred to in this webinar, those are the top of the funnel. That's the external reach. How did you get them? For us, for example, it's people read a lot of times in our Inc. column, our Forbes column, or Entrepreneur, or we post an HBR or a HubSpot blog. Like, we're pretty much consistently getting content out there in different channels that our audience is already consuming, which is a very, very vital part of brand awareness, thought leadership, really getting out there, reaching new people. Then it goes down another layer where you have on-site content, which a lot of people miss, a lot of brands and companies miss, is that you don't continue that conversation. You think magic's going to happen, that somebody's going to read an article and they're always going to just say, I want to be a client. No, you have to have good content on the site to continue that conversation and have very aligned content. You keep leading them down the path. And as you get closer and closer, like, that next step would be kind of gated content where you can capture their information, where it could be a white paper, case study, where they're very, very intrigued, where it kind of leads you down to that funnel where, for companies like me, I mean, we're doing thought leadership to get clients, build our company. For others, they can sell a lot of that expertise. And so it's important to look at thought leadership just as a natural marketing funnel and consistently educate people down it so they're getting value, learning more, and then ultimately it leads them to do what you want. So I think that's a very vital part of being successful at thought leadership.
Yeah, and I think that's a big point, and anybody who's a professional in the space, I think, will echo that same sentiment, is that authenticity is critically important, but consistency is almost just as important, because if people will try it for, a few weeks, a couple months, and think they're not getting results. But like John said, and I think Andrew knows this as well, you have to stick with it, you have to be consistent, and they have to gradually learn that you're that source that's going to continually provide good content on a regular basis and across all different outlets. And that kind of speaks a little bit to the strategy, where, yeah, it is more than just marketing. Thought leadership is not just a marketing strategy, and as you can hear from both what John and Andrew are sharing, it's so much deeper than that. It's creating a true connection with your audience, them really seeing you as a trusted source, and ultimately it does become the foundation on which you sell all your knowledge. And so we always look at, and certainly the topic, one of the topics for today is, thought leadership is free. It's the content that you put out there to establish yourself as a real opinion leader. You've got to add value in a lot of different ways, and as Andrew said, they're going to use you as a research source to solve some of their internal problems, and you've got to be reliable. And as John was mentioning, it's got to be authentic. It's got to be consistent. It's always got to be there. But you have to draw that line. A certain amount of it is, what you're putting out there for free, and it's to really build the trust and the awareness with your audience. But then ultimately, if you're in the business of selling your knowledge, whether it's books that you're writing or ebooks that you're putting out there, subscriptions to your content, speaking tours, seminars that you're trying to get an audience to enroll in, or online courses that you're selling, that's where they're going to start spending money for the content that you're putting out there. And so that's kind of the big question for both of you guys quickly that we'll probably close on here is, how do you see, where do you draw the line between what you give away for free and then ultimately what's going to be the sellable product, and without taking away too much value? John, what's your thoughts on that quickly?
Sure. Really, when it comes to, it's honestly sometimes different with different companies, but it's kind of like looking at that funnel where, that top external content, that's obviously not what you charge for. I mean, that's what you're doing to reach new people. The online, or when it goes on site, once again, is that you're still trying to educate and get people to trust you. You're still gaining that trust. As you go past that, then it gives you the opportunity to, make money off your expertise. Where, for example, for us, we are getting people down there to ultimately buy our services. For others, when it comes to, selling your knowledge, that might be you're actually selling a book, or you're selling something that is, your expertise as a product. And so I think it's just further down the funnel where you kind of make that point. For us, like a lot of times we have gated content there because we want to capture information where we can ultimately get on the phone and talk to them, do a discovery period, and bring them on as a client. And for others, it might be, no, you don't offer that. But that's where you start, getting into your, products that you're selling or your expertise there. But you want to gain as much trust as you can. And then once you kind of do that, then you can open it up to kind of sell. But something that's happening, especially as generations after me, people don't like being sold to until there is some trust and they are educated. And so make sure that you actually are to a point where you have helped them out. You have done enough to sell them. I think Gary Vee he just did a book about jab, right hook, or something along those lines. And I think that the jab idea is give them, knowledge, give them some good expertise, give them good information, and there's a couple jabs where you're helping them. And then the right hook is, hey, let's not be tricky and try and sell and not let them know it's coming. Let's actually say, here's the time to buy my stuff. Here's why. And then you can ultimately, not just get the right sales, but you create brand advocates by creating that trust and then ultimately getting more value from that content. So, I'll let Andrew explain after this, just because that's more of his area.
Yeah, Andrew, what are your thoughts on that same topic?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for that, John. I'm glad you mentioned book because, before digital experiences, before online, really that's where knowledge experts lived, by creating books, selling books. And nowadays with digital experiences, there's this real opportunity to create something else that's really answering, when you look at like thought leadership, you have the what and the why, but these digital experiences, learning experiences, knowledge expertise kind of plays in the realm of the deeper realm of how do you do it, and providing feedback around that and categorizing a curriculum around all of that knowledge, so that people are able to take this on the job or in their life, and there's takeaways with that, and they're able to effectively use those takeaways and the feedback they get from that, online experience.
Yeah, that's a great point. And really what it gets down to, what's up on the screen now is just developing a strategy. And I think what both John and Andrew are keying in on is that nowadays the buyers are a lot more sophisticated. They have access to a lot more research and access to knowledge, a lot of free knowledge on the internet. And you can't sell them as hard as you might have sold them in the past. And this whole strategy of building awareness and building your brand as a trustworthy source for content, it kind of naturally leads to sharing, a paid for knowledge source, whether it's a book, a traditional book or speaking tour, or an online course. And you don't have to force sell, but I think what John mentioned, which is a great point, is you also don't want to hide it. You don't want to try to sneak it in there because people are a lot more sophisticated today with the access to the amount of information they have online. So, there's a couple steps here, or 6 steps to be exact, of developing your strategy, identifying your audience, clearly establishing the objectives, and then defining, as the guys were just talking about, what's free versus what's paid, preparing that content and organizing the distribution. They say that on average, content marketing has 12 different distribution channels, so you got to open your mind to all the different ways you can get your content out there to drive traffic, and then certainly measuring results to know if it's truly effective. But in closing, I want to thank everyone for staying, just about 5 minutes over our time. I also want to thank both John Hall from Influence & Co. and Andrew Fayad from eLearning Mind. You guys have been great and shared some really great practical experience. Definitely check these guys out. You can take a look at their websites. In both those areas of developing, building your thought leadership presence and for content marketing purposes, as well as developing truly great knowledge expertise in the e-learning set. Both of these companies can do a lot of great things in that area. So thanks to both of our panelists, and thank you to all of the attendees for your attention today. And we hope you join us for some future webinars on new topics like this. Thank you, guys.